Okay, we're going to open up the debate now. We're going to have a panel discussion. I'd like to invite a couple of people to the stage. Philip Martin, he's the CEO of Ireland's first only online appliance retailer. If he'd like to join us up here, that's AppliancesDelivered.ie. Rikke Roselund, Danish-born founder and CEO of UK and Irish company My Doggy. And I interviewed Rikke yesterday for Saturday's programme. That'll be going out on News Talk. Very interesting character. So if Ricky'd like to join us. Oisin Kim, another man I met recently. He's the co-founder and CEO of the online telemedicine service WebDoctor.ie. How are you, Oisin? You're very welcome to the stage. And finally, I'd like to ask Niall Carson, and he's head of sales at Hailo Ireland. Niall, you're very welcome as well. So a round of applause for our guests before we start. And maybe what I might do is we might ask you just to maybe briefly introduce yourselves and your company. We might start with you, Philip, if you would.
Yes, so my name is Philip Martin. I'm the CEO of AppliancesDelivered.ie. As Bobby said, Ireland's only pure-play online electrical retailer. We are in operation since January 11th of this year, and so far, so good.
Great, thanks for that, Philip. And Rikke, tell us all about My Doggy, that wonderful business that you've set up that has 400,000 members already.
Yes, so My Doggy, it's an online platform that connects dog owners with dog borrowers for the borrowers to help take care of dogs when the owners are busy, and this can be for a walk or for a weekend or for a happy holiday.
Great. Oisin, I met you there a couple of weeks ago. How are you doing? Web Doctor, exciting stuff you're doing?
Yeah, so basically we're an online doctor service, so we enable patients to talk to an Irish GP via smartphone, tablet, computer, and we also provide the Leia Healthcare care and call service as well, so that's our clinicians and platform as well.
Thank you, Oisin. And Niall, thanks for joining us. Hailo, we all know it. It's a great service. Tell us a little bit more about the business and where you are now.
Yeah, I guess we're not Uber. That's the sort of after watching that presentation. But we're certainly Ireland's largest taxi network, and we are over the next year going to grow into Europe's largest e-hailing app for registered taxis.
Okay. Yeah, I know it's been great watching your progress and what you've done. It really is. I think we'll start with you, Simon. Maybe and thanks for your presentation. But I suppose you talk about the customer there, enhancing the experience beyond sort of e-commerce functionality, let's call it. Yeah. Like, because again, you talked about millennials there, and I know they hate to be called that, but you know, the functionality, people want to do their business, they want to get online, they want to do their business, and they want to move on with their lives. They're not maybe necessarily interested in being your advocate or your ambassador. Talk to me about winning people over in that way.
So I'll give you a good example, again from the US. There's a company called Zappos that sells shoes online, basically. And this company has made it a part of their policy that all the employees, regardless if that's the CEO or the janitor, they all will work with customer service and to help the customers. So I can actually, as a customer of Zappos, I can call them and order a pizza, okay? They don't even have pizzas. But they just have this policy of helping the customers, and you know, they're doing these things. I'm not advocating that you guys should help customers buy pizza online. That's not the point. The point is that they have it as a part of the culture, of the company culture, of they all need to be interacting with customers, regardless of what position or whatever they are in the hierarchy. So it's more of a mindset. Like I've seen a lot of tech companies, they talk about mobile first, and they have it as a slogan for their company. But it's not about, you know, just having it on a piece of paper, or putting it on your in one of your internal presentations. It's more about understanding that kind of policy and implementing it from the inside out. So that's what it's much more simple in reality.
Philip, how important is I suppose educating the consumer? And again, particularly in your business where it's appliances delivered, maybe there's certain parts of society certainly who couldn't care if they never went to a shop. In other words, if they could get the appliance delivered, get it installed, and not really go through the hassle of picking one out. Like, is educating the consumer and I suppose reassuring the consumer that they don't have to go out shopping for an appliance. Is that part of your sales strategy?
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's critical in our industry to explain to the consumer and to let them, I suppose, know that, you know, our products we sell are bulky items. Generally, a washing machine, dishwasher, people don't want to bring them home in the back of their car. Therefore, to inform the consumer, they can go online, they can buy that product in an affordable way, a frictionless service in terms of transaction, easy in, easy out on the website, and have the product delivered within 24 hours, be it outside of the Greater Dublin area or same day in the Greater Dublin area. That convenience is a big plus. But I'll back up what Simon says in relation to the consumer and how important they are. For us, like, we looked at our model and we said, and again, disruption is something Simon pointed out as well during his presentation. It's a term he used quite regularly, and it's a buzzword in our industry as well. But what I would say is it's not really rocket science. Analyze what your competitors do and just try and do better. So if it's the website, try and make it less frictionless in terms of, well, less friction to the consumer. That's number one. And then number two, in terms of industry standards. So for us, delivery standards. So effectively, Appliances Delivered, our name would make you think that we're an appliance delivery company. In actual fact, we're really a logistics company more than anything else, a marketing and logistics company. So we just said, okay, industry standard is 5 to 7 days for a washing machine to be delivered nationwide. We just made it next day. It was challenging, but that's really what got us kind of the foothold. But focus on the consumer and making their life easier really is how you're going to get to win.
Does that mean we can be ordering pizza on your site anytime soon?
No, you can't order pizza, although that could be something we look at in the future, all right?
Rikke, your business is largely online. Again, you're in that connecting space of the sharing economy where you're putting a user and a supplier together. Can a well-made website ever replace, I suppose, the value of face-to-face interaction? In other words, can a website replace the whole interaction of consumers and sellers actually meeting?
I mean, obviously it depends on what sector you're in, but for the sector I'm in, certainly not. And you know, you asked about the importance of the consumer, and for us, whether it's 2-legged or 4-legged members, they're absolutely heart of everything we did or do. And we started out sort of as a weekend project, and we had people signing up literally all across the UK, and we started out manually matching people. We went to their houses, we asked them about why they had signed up, and we got to know them really well. And then based on knowing our customers, we built the website. And essentially we built the website to make people meet up in person and take them offline. So we use online to get them offline.
Yeah, so the website then is the driver of the business.
Yes,
okay.
That's where they meet each other.
Okay. Oisin, your own business, again, the whole thing about being in a new space, people, again, needing to be reassured, going online to use video. Tell me a little bit about getting over that hurdle as well of confidence. In other words, I'm somebody who traditionally goes to my doctor, and now here you are with this new service. The challenge of actually articulating that to the consumer.
Yeah, we've had this from the start. Our approach was to put some people front and center. So when you actually go to our website, you actually seen some of the doctors who would be treating you. And we rotated that and changed the doctors around. You know, there's a person there. We have had some people, when a doctor responds to them, say, oh God, this is actually a person. I thought it was a computer. So, you know, it was surprising that there actually is a human on the far side. You know, we're a communication platform more than anything else. We put patients in contact with doctors. And I think the other thing is that we insisted from the start that we would use Irish GPs and Irish doctors for the Irish market. And that made us different because the other entrants in the area were using UK-based doctors, posting scripts across from London, which would take a week to arrive. So by having a local GP who was, who was local, the script would arrive in usually about 24 hours. I know you've got involvement with the post office, but usually would arrive around 24, sometimes 48. But it also meant that the local knowledge for GPs would know about how the referral process would work, you know, what medicines were available on the Irish market, and there are differences between even Ireland and the UK. There are key differences in some medicines that are either not available on the Irish market or available in different brand names. Yeah, so.
And is legislation a barrier to you doing business?
It's actually an enabler. So a couple of years ago, the EU released the Cross-Border Healthcare Directive, and that was signed in about 2 years ago in Ireland. And that actually opened up the Irish market to any European doctor, which means that a script that's wrote in the UK, in London, for example, can just be taken to any pharmacy in Ireland and vice versa. So for us, it's I guess, legislation actually became an enabler, which meant that effectively the border is removed. So our prescriptions are valid throughout the whole of Europe. If you take an Irish script to another EU country, the pharmacy has an obligation to take it.
Right.
And we do get some calls back from Greek and French pharmacists saying, I have a script here, but it's quite rare.
Niall, again, I've watched your business model for years and been hugely impressed by it. Legislation has played a part in your business as well, doesn't it? And again, I suppose different legislation in different countries means effectively you have to operate differently.
Yeah. Well, I think Hailo's model has been actually for the taxi industry all the way along. It was by the driver, for the driver. There was 3 London cabbies that actually got together with 3 tech entrepreneurs and put it together. And it's always been about putting people in touch with the driver who's in the licensed vehicle, all of the rigors that legislation puts in place. So I think it was one of the examples I gave once before was you're not really going to get into any sort of a bus or a public transport that hasn't really been vetted, and that's the model we go after.
Yeah.
But it's when we're in Spain and UK, there's different legislation within each, and putting the drivers in touch with the passenger is we have to follow all the proper legislation for that as well.
And what's your biggest challenge now in continuing to grow the business? Well, what are the things that actually hold you back?
I suppose definitely challenges. I don't know how much of it's holding us back, but certainly we serve 2 masters. So basically, everyone thinks Hailo are pushing a lot to passengers, and the surprise and delight that we try and do as much as possible. We really try and through our comms and everything, give as much as we can to the customers. But on the other side of that, we're doing as much as we can for the drivers as well, because without them, we've no business, right? So basically making sure that they're engaged, making sure that we can do everything for them, like on days of the bus strike, on days of huge events, that they're not going, just go off and do this. Like, we want to provide the best service to passengers, but also we want to be giving drivers the job nearest to them. And one of the terms that drivers use is Hailo gives you a job on your bonnet, that basically, rather than having to drive all the way across the city because they got the radio in and they got told, they're getting the job nearest to them, which makes for smarter cities, but also saves them on fuel, and they can get through much more jobs in a day. So keeping the driver engaged is a big challenge, yeah.
Simon, isn't it the key, and listening to Niall there about Hailo, where if you can find something that satisfies the consumer and also the provider, makes it easier for the provider to actually do business and do sales, you're onto a winner, regardless of what space that is in.
Yeah, of course. This is the whole point. But I think there will always, the guys that enter whatever vertical that is or whatever industry, the first mover advantage is obviously very positive, but it's also the one that is, fighting and trying to lobby for that kind of change. Look at, I'll put Uber another as an example where it became, forbidden, and Uber Pop became forbidden in Sweden the other day. We're seeing a lot of disruption going on in a lot of different industries. Airbnb is becoming illegal as well, and there was all these discussions, and I think it's a matter of time for the governments to understand the kind of impact that this makes for the consumers. Because the consumers want this, it solves a problem, we are reusing infrastructure that we have already, and we're kind of, making a great impact. Yesterday, I saw in the news in Sweden the drones, so there's basically a lot of companies working with the drones. They also became illegal. Yeah. And we're supposed to be the liberal country within the EU. Probably not. Yeah. So I think we are not, from a governmental point of view, I think the adaptation to all these changes and to all the disruption is not going as well as, the technology part of it, to be honest.
Yeah, we'll take a couple of questions from the audience in a second, but does anybody have a view of, you talk about Airbnb there, it's got an incredible valuation in terms of its worth and its value and all that, but it's never made any money. Like, I have a problem with that as a kind of a nuts and bolts type of guy that buys something at X and sells it at Y. Yeah. That, how long can you go on in this sort of virtual space of not making any money, but how do you square it with this massive valuation?
You want me to go ahead?
I think we're seeing this at the moment with Twitter. Originally, the share price was astronomical. In our industry, we saw it with a company called AO World, again, floated at a ridiculously expensive share price, which dwindled. I think exactly what Simon said, these businesses launch and then the consumer appetite changes. That's very, very important. So managing the consumer appetite against the launch date is something to watch. And then obviously legislation as well that we've discussed. So if legislation changes, it impacts massively on the business. So Airbnb is one classic example, but potentially in other industries, legislation can have an issue as well.
There's a time to get off the bus, Niall, isn't there? In terms of just knowing which stop to get off at.
Days gone by, we were like investing in, people who were diamond mining, gold mining. Everyone's like, look at Amazon. We talked about it earlier. For so long, Amazon was that company that wasn't making money. And now, even if you look at where they've diversified a little bit into Amazon Web Services, they're dominating the market. So it is funny, but it is all about where people are placing their bets, and they're placing it on tech now, like they were in diamond mining or gold mining back in the day. It's sort of just a different place for people to play with a little bit of money as well.
Oisin, you have a view on it.
Yeah, I think recently, I think it's the last couple of days, it was announced that Groupon are in the process of buying LivingSocial, there were really two large players in the kind of online deal market, and they had different areas, and I actually think LivingSocial had a more attractive model for retailers in that they basically only cashed coupons when they were actually used, and they still split. Groupon actually cashed only when the coupon was used, but LivingSocial always split the revenue from the start. But they're gone. I think Groupon announced that the price that they would be paying for LivingSocial was negligible. It wasn't going to show up on their balance sheet. Which gives you an idea, and that was once.
And also the speed of change in that. Any thoughts on that, Rikke?
Well, right now, I think it's about the sharing economy is around $9 billion industry, and it's set to be $230 billion by 2025. So hence, with your example of Amazon and sort of how they've grown, I mean, sharing economies, two-sided marketplaces, some of the hardest to set up because you need to get it's like the chicken and the egg issue. You need to get so much liquidity onto the marketplaces, but once they work, they have a really strong business model. And hence, it's getting them there. And Uber and Airbnb, I mean, they were not there 7 years ago, and look how we've all changed consumer behavior in such a few years. So definitely, once to what, is it sustainable? Eventually, they will have to make money.
No, it is. I find it fascinating.
It's fascinating.
Anybody, any thoughts from the floor? We'd love to hear from you. Any questions for our panel? Don't be shy. It is an internet day. We're all here to bare our souls, as the fella says. So, anybody got a question for our panel? You don't get a panel of this magnitude together every day. Yeah, we have one here on this table at the front.
What would be kind of one thing you would say to them just to get going? What would be the first steps that they should be doing?
So I might just re-say that because we didn't have a mic on you. So it's about SMEs. One thing SMEs should be doing to really, really take the opportunity. Oisin, you wanted to come in on it.
Yeah, for me, I think there's a couple of things that you can do really simply and do well. So I think someone is talking later who offers a simplified wizard-style ability to generate a website with your own .ie domain. The other thing is look professional. Don't put up my business name at gmail.com or hotmail.com on your website. If you're getting an IE domain, go to one of the providers, get a website, get a quality email service, have a landline, like a number, not a mobile number. There's a few things that you can actually make yourself look a lot bigger. I think having a website as a starting point is a really good thing for Irish businesses. It's effectively a brochure for your business. A lot of the online sites, I think it's sam.ie, I think if they're here, I think there's somebody later on talking, I think. It's a no-brainer. It's there the whole time. If people look for you, they'll find you on Google. I think you mentioned Google advertising, so I think we kind of split most of our spend on Facebook at the moment in terms of digitally because we're getting a better return, but it's still probably 70-30. Check out a couple. You can spend as little as €1 a day on online advertising, and you can test things. You won't get a great return, but you can spend as little as you want. It's not like this minimum upfront cost. So get a basic website done using a wizard style, with good photographs of your team, logo, that kind of stuff. Try and get your products listed. put some time into it, and don't be afraid to spend a couple of €100 on some sort of promotion and advertising to get people aware.
Yeah, that's good advice. Yeah.
I also think, too, a bit to Simon's talk earlier on, that it's really about understanding your customers. So hence, I mean, we have made, at My Doggy, we have made a lot of assumptions along the way about our customers. And then you start speaking with your customers and they go, actually, no, that's not the functionality we'd really love to have. So I think, you know, very valid points, but once you have an idea, even before you start spending a lot of money, go out and speak with people, ask them what they want, especially your existing customers, and also with potential new ones, just to make sure you get your point across of the products. And you build, you know, a website that they'll love to use, because you're doing it, you know, for us, for our lovely community, or to build your customer base.
Simon, you wanted to say something?
I fully agree with everything you said. It's very rare that I say that. No, but I would like to add one final thing, and that is, you know, a venue like this, you meet a lot of other like-minded people, probably not doing the same exact thing as you, but I think networking and, you know, I would never make it out of the basement if it wasn't for all these amazing people and the community that it was, you know, in these certain countries where I founded the businesses. So this day and this venue is a great opportunity to meet and interact with other people that might give you ideas and that you can network with and share ideas with. So that was my point.
Okay, thanks for that question. We'll take one more question. Yes, this lady here in the red jacket. We'll get a mic to you there, and you might just tell us who you are and introduce yourself if you wouldn't mind. Thank you.
Siobhan Cronin from EdTech Software. We're just currently building a new website, and I would like to ask, as each one of you introduced yourselves, you gave an idea of the kind of customer clientele that you're directing your business towards. And I'd like to ask, what was the most successful element of your website in gaining traction in the industry that you're in? You know, the way you build a website, and sometimes elements are successful and sometimes you take out elements. What was the most successful thing in gaining traffic?
Okay, well, that's a good question. Would you like to help us with that, Philip?
I might have mentioned it before, but making it a frictionless transaction for the consumer is very, very important. So some websites have a convoluted 15, 20 clicks to purchase, and customers will bounce far before clicking 15, 20 times on your site. They won't dwell that long. So I would say my advice would be to cut it down to the basics. Customers only really need to understand the basics to make it a buying decision. I would say analysing the keywords within, so keyword research is very important, and people don't do it. I'm getting a bit technical here now for people who aren't technical, but understanding what search terms customers are using in your space and researching those search terms, because that can be very cost effective from a marketing perspective. You're only investing time, money, AdWords spend on terms customers are actually searching for, rather than investing in terms that customers aren't. And then just the layout of your site, some very, very small things. It's actually touching on points that everyone has spoken on. But in relation to the site itself, make sure it's built on a solid platform, that the page refresh speeds are very quick. Again, customers will bounce if it's not refreshing quick enough. And these are all errors that I see SMEs make on a regular basis in relation to their sites. So yeah, getting down to the nitty-gritty in terms of page speeds, customer dwell times, and then once you have all that information and I suppose your foundation in place, constantly analysing that data and trying to improve on that data. That is critically important. So
that's good advice. You'd want to say something, Simon?
Yeah, when it comes to UX or user experience, there's a guy who's called Steve Krug. He wrote a book called Don't Make Me Think. When it comes to the actual design of the website, don't let the users or the visitors think. Don't make it complicated. Make it quite simple. Use what's called CTAs or call to actions. Register here, call us, you know, buy, whatever button you have. Make it very clear to onboard the visitors and convert them to customers. So whatever action you want them to do. So that's
great advice, and that's a good question. I think, and that really is at the heart of why we're here today. And again, you know, asking about the SME, little things like that. What do I do? Because, you know, we've all made expensive mistakes when we're designing websites and that. And I think the other thing I'd say is that the cost of getting a site up and going it continues to fall. So, you know, you can get a lot of value out there and a lot of bang for your buck if you shop around. And you're right to be thinking that way, that, you know, have the site tailor-made for your needs and your customers' needs. It was a really good question. Okay, I want to keep the day moving and I want to keep things on track. So I'd like to say a big thanks to our guests, Simon Saneback, Philip Martin from AppliancesDelivered.ie, Rikke Roselund from My Doggy, Oisin Kim, co-founder of WebDoctor.ie, and Niall Carson, sales at Hailo, head of sales at Hailo Ireland. So big thanks to our guests and a big round of applause for them.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.